Hello and welcome back to the channel. On today's tutorial, I'm going to be sharing with you how to cut this trendy corset gown with flare. So if it's your first time viewing my channel, please hit on the subscribe button. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and let's dive right into today's video. So now I've gone ahead to mark out all my basic measurements, which include my shoulder to bust, shoulder to under bust, and shoulder to waistline. So the next step is to go ahead to mark my shoulder divided by 2. Now my shoulder is 14 divided by 2, I have 7 inches. We're not going to add half inch to this because the dress has no sleeve, just a spaghetti strap. From there, I'm going to go down by 1 inch and I'm going to go ahead to place my ruler and I'm going to draw a straight line at that point. So that will serve as my shoulder slope at this point. So now I'm going to go ahead to place my tape and I'll be marking out my chest line. So to get your chest line is your bust circumference divided by 6 plus 1.5 inches. So whatever I have here, I'll be transferring it to the other side. This is to make sure I have a straight line at this point. Now I'm going to go ahead to place my ruler and I'm going to draw a straight line. After drawing out that straight line, I'm going to go ahead to label it as my chest line. So now I'm going to go ahead to mark my shoulder divided by 2 at my chest line. This is just to make sure I have a straight line connecting from my shoulder down to my chest line. So I'll go ahead and I'm going to rule a straight line at that point. Now I'm going to mark my armhole curve, and to do that is to divide my armhole into 2. I'm going to go ahead to fold my tape this way and I'm going to mark at the center. And I'll place back my tape and I'm going to come in by ½ inch. At this point, I'm going to mark my bust circumference divided by 4. This will serve as a guide on that point. So after I'm done doing that, I'm just going to go ahead to place my French curve, connect from that point down to the center and from the center to the upper part of my shoulder, and with that I'm done cutting or marking out the armhole curve. So after I'm done doing this, I'll go ahead to use my marker and I'm going to outline my pattern just to make it more visible. So next, I'm going to go ahead and place my tape and I'll be marking my nipple to nipple divided by 2. My nipple to nipple is 7 inches divided by 2. I have 3.5 inches and I'm going to go ahead to mark at my chest line, bust line, on the bust, and go ahead to mark it at my waistline this way. After I'm done doing that, I'm just going to go ahead to place my ruler and I'm going to connect from my under bust from my waistline down to my under bust and down to the chest line. So this is what I have. So at the upper part also, I'm going to extend that line this way and I'm going to mark. That is my nipple to nipple line. So after I'm done doing this, the next step is to go ahead to mark where I want my cup to start. So I'll be using 2 inches. So if you don't want yours to be covered or you want to reveal more cleavage, you can use 1.5 inches or go ahead to use your bust radius, which is the distance between your bust and your under bust. So after I'm done doing that, I'm going to go ahead to mark my dart intake of 1 inch. So for this pattern, I will be using the regular 1 inch dart. So I'll be marking 1 inch at both sides of my under bust and at my waistline, and I'll go ahead to rule a line to connect it this way. So after that, I'll just place my French curve touching my bust down to my under bust, and at the other part I'm going to go ahead to place touching my bust and going down to my under bust. So after I'm done doing that, I'm just going to go ahead to take my marker and I'm going to outline the parts that I have marked out on this particular pattern. So after I'm done doing that, the next step is to go ahead to go in by ½ inch at the chest line. So now this is not a standard. You can go ahead to go up or come down by ½ inch. From there, I'll place my French curve and I'll go ahead to connect, and this is what I have on this part. I'll go ahead to outline my pattern to also make it visible for you to see. So after I'm done doing this, I'll go ahead and mark my 1-inch dart intake at the upper part. So if you're plus size at this point, you're going to use 1.5 or more. Then I'll place my French curve and I'll go ahead to connect. After I'm done connecting, I'm going to use my marker to mark it out to make it more visible. Now, I'm going to place my French curve, connect from my chest line, the 1/2 inch I went in from my chest line and down to my bust. So this is what my cup looks like, and I'll just go ahead to blend it to give it a more finished look. So this is what I have for my cup. So now on this part, I'm going to divide what I have here into two by folding my tape, and I'll go ahead to place my French curve and I will connect. So this is what I have at this point, and then go ahead to also place my French curve and I'll mark out. So this is my cup at this point. So now I'll go ahead and I will cut out my cup this way. So I'll be making use of a 3-part corset for this particular pattern. And at the upper part, I'll go ahead to blend in the yoke part of this dress. Now, the next step is to go ahead to insert my body circumference. At the bust, I'm going to mark my bust circumference divided by 4, measure the dart intake here, replace it, and I'll be adding my sewing allowance to it. So I'm going to extend the line because it's not up to that, and whatever I have at the bust is what I will have at the chest line. At the under bust, I'll mark my under bust circumference divided by 4, measure the 2 inches dart intake and add my sewing allowance. At the waistline, I'm going to mark the waist circumference divided by 4, measure the 2 inches dart intake, just like we did for the other part. I will mark and then go ahead to mark my sewing allowance. Now I'm going to go ahead to use my ruler to connect and connect upwards. So this is what I have at this point, and I'm just going to go ahead to outline my pattern. So at this point, if you find this tutorial very interesting and educative, please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, and if you haven't yet subscribed to this YouTube channel, please subscribe to this channel, and don't also forget to subscribe to our second channel, which is Drafts by Maki. So at this point, I'm going to be marking the strap for the dress. So this is like the easiest way to get your strap if you're really confused about getting it after you're done sewing. So all you have to do is just mark this, and you're going to use it as a guide to cut out your strap. So I'll go ahead to outline it this way, and this is what I have. Going over to the back pattern, to get your strap for the back, you're going to place your tape and get your shoulder to chest line. So mine is 7 because the back pattern is going to start actually at our chest line. So I'm just going to go ahead to cut out my pattern, and if you have any question concerning this particular pattern, please leave your question at the comment section, and if you haven't yet subscribed, please hit on the subscribe button. So after I'm done cutting out, this is what I have, and I'll go ahead to tape up the upper part of this cup just to create a 3-part corset. So after I'm done placing it, I'm just going to go ahead to just trim out a little or at the lower part. So this is what I have for my cup. So after this is my pattern for the front, and we're going to head over to cut the back. So for the back, we're going to make it easy. All we're going to do is just to go ahead to use our front pattern to cut the back. So I'm going to go ahead to mark my zipper allowance. I will be using 2 inches for that, and after marking out that, I'm just going to place my ruler and I'm going to rule out a line. So after I'm done doing that, I'm going to be getting rid of the bulginess at the back of the dress. I'll mark 1/2 inch at the lower part, and I'll go ahead to extend it upwards. After that, I'll go ahead to cut this out. After I'm done cutting that out, I'll go ahead to label this as the zipper part of the dress, and I'll outline this line because I'll be using it as a guide. Now I'm going to start placing my front pattern, and I'm going to pin it down this way. After I'm done pinning this part, I'll also go ahead to pin the other part of my pattern. So after I'm done pinning, I'm just going to trace out the measurements I have at this point, and I'll place my ruler at the chest line, and I'm just going to go ahead to draw out a straight line at that point, because your back pattern is going to start at the chest line, and I'll go ahead to unpin my pattern. So this is like the easiest way to draft out your back pattern. So at this part, I'm going to go down by ½ inch. So this is to make sure that after sewing your dress, at the center of your dress does not pop up. So I'm going to go ahead to cut out my pattern. So if you have any question, feel free to go ahead to ask, and also leave your comments at the comment section. So now this is my back pattern. So heading over to the band in front of the dress. So you notice that there's a band in front of the dress, is actually a belt. So first, I'm just going to cut out the one at the front. You can just cut it together as one piece and top stitch it by the side, or you can just place and join it together when you're cutting your dress. So for this, I'm going to mark my waist circumference divided by 4, which is 7, and I'll be adding the sewing allowance I used of 1.5 inches. After that, I added ½ inch just in case. So now I'm going to go ahead to extend that line. So after I'm done doing that, I'm just going to rule out a straight line at this point, and I'm just going to go ahead to cut it out. So after cutting it out, this is what I need, and for the width, I'll be using 2.5 inches. I'll go ahead and remark 2.5 inches here, and I'm going to go ahead to take my ruler to draw out a straight line. After drawing out the straight line, I'm just going to go ahead to cut it out this way. So this is what I have at this point. So now I will label it as band, and while cutting out, while sewing, we are going to go ahead to cut out the back belt. So coming over to the back pattern of this dress, I'll be using this to cut it out. So now we have the part that is high and the part that is low. At the front part of this dress, we notice that we have about 2 layers. The first layer, which has a lower layer on it, and then the main base of the dress, which is a flare dress. When cutting that, you're not going to use the actual circumference of your waist, because you're still going to gather that. So looking at the back is just also a flare, just like we said. So you're going to cut a flare at the lower part. So let's go ahead and start cutting for the part on top of the dress. So now for this part of my waist, I'll go ahead and I'll use 4.5 inches. You can go ahead to use 4 inches. At the other side of this, I'm going to go ahead and mark my hip circumference, and I'll go ahead also to add about 4 inches after my hip. Although I was thinking it's too low, but while I'm joining the dress, I'll go ahead to cut it out. So now I'll slant from that point down to the other part this way. So this is how we are going to achieve that part on the upper part, and we are going to be using a slash and spread method also, because you notice that you have like a pleat on it at the waistline, and after that you're going to have a layer underneath it. So that layer, we're going to actually cut it out when we're done, when we are actually sewing the dress. So now for the main flare of the dress, which is the lower part, I'll also cut that out when we are sewing the dress also. So for this, we're going to be using a slash and spread method to achieve the first layer of this dress. So I don't know if you're confused, but to clear you more on this, join us in our sewing tutorial, where I'll be explaining more and doing the cutting so that it won't be too difficult for you to understand. So now I'll go ahead and I will cut out this pattern. I'm going to go ahead and measure this, and after I'm done measuring it, I'm going to cut it into different piece. I'm going to be using 4 inches, and I'm going to mark. So after I'm done marking it out, I'll go ahead and slash it into different pieces and label it. So this is what we are going to use to achieve the first layer of this dress. And on the second part, which is the base, we are going to be cutting out a flare dress, a flare skirt directly on the fabric. That is when we are sewing the dress. So I'll label this as 1 2 3 4 5 and 6. So now I'll be slashing this into different pieces. So with this, we are done. So join us in our next video, which is the sewing part, where we'll be cutting out the main base of the dress on the material and also stitching up the dress. And if you haven't yet subscribed, please hit on the subscribe button and don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. Thanks.